So I want to do a quick meeting.
So
I'd like to.
first of all, I like that AI generated mock podcast or whatever it is. It's actually really nice. It's very. I've seen someone actually online do something like that before, and he was saying this is the end of the profession of podcasting because now nobody is going to be looking for real people. It's just going to be something that's generated online.
I'll tell you. Can I make an assessment real quick about it?
Sure,
The
go ahead.
level of quality it is, okay? And so for people listening, I guess we'll have a link. It's I use Google Notebook, which uses their Gemini AI
Yeah.
to generate their AI made a podcast, two characters discussing the sources, which were links to a few of my videos, and uh, it was pretty good in the sense that, like, if you took two regular people, college level people, Americans, to make a podcast about my material, that is what I would expect. And all the errors I would expect them to make, this AI thing made. Conceptual errors. Actually, it made really dumb errors. Sorry. It got my name wrong. It called me Rami Goldrat. That is a real person. That's not me. He is related to some of the knowledge I talk about. It's not me. It's the son of the dude I talk about. His name happens to be Rami. This thing got confused about that. That's like a first grader mistake. Let's put it on a level of something. First graders maybe make that mistake. Not college level people. But the content they said, it was college level people. And the point is, the errors that you would expect from that person, conceptual errors, like I want to say an idea, okay, which I know it got from the culture. Uh, it said the idea that the Boeing, the company, was seeking profit, and that led them to doing unethical behavior, and it was because they were seeking profit that led them to doing unethical behavior. So they're saying there's a conflict there, and I disagree with that. So does Ellie Goldbrat, and the material they're talking about explicitly disagrees with that, but it slipped out anyway. So that's what I would expect from a superficial understanding of all this stuff from a college level person, and that's pretty damn good. That's my
Um,
assessment.
yeah, the fact that it was being generated with all the filler words that we would typically use, the like, and so on, the fluency of how
He was
the
doing that better than me. I liked it better than what I am.
yeah, I mean, it's entertaining to listen to in the sense that you're listening in on the conversation that's going fluently. The thoughts are flowing. Obviously, like you said, it's not going to be as probing as when some people are actually trying to delve deeper into this if they want to really dig into the
I think it
ideas.
made some insights I didn't think of. Little stuff. I
Yeah,
think it's delving a little bit.
yeah. No, it's definitely the case. I so there is really one experiment that was done. We talked about him before, Daniel Dennett. He's the, the American philosopher who died last year, well, this year. And he's very much interested in AI. He has done a lot of pioneering work there. And one of the things that he did, I think it was in 22, he digitized all his works to create a digital surrogate philosopher. It was called DigiDan, and they posed some questions based on his books to some of the people who are experts in his philosophy and some of his friends. And they wanted to see would that AI actually fool them into thinking that this was actually Daniel Dennett, answering these questions. Included in the choices, they included some of his own answers, to see are they able to recognize it. Many of the experts actually were fooled for some of the questions. It was so convincing to the degree that even people who knew him were not able to fully distinguish the answers he would give. Some of the answers were clearly something he would never ever say, and not in that particular way. But some of them were very ambiguous. I tried to take the quiz, but unfortunately, it's I'm first of all, I don't consider myself an expert in his works, and also the grading of the quiz is now stopped. They don't no longer grade it, but it's impressive.
Well, I was impressed for sure, but then I was, and I make high hopes. I'm optimistic for it, and then I'm shattered when I see. Wait, he called me Rami Goldrat. Okay, now let me add another level here. There's an area where you can add notes and save it to the model. I think that's what it's saying, right? So I said, my name is not Rami Goldrat, and the author of the article is me, Rami Rustam. You got the author wrong. And it replies and it says, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I got the author wrong. Then I had it generate it again, but with this note in the model supposedly, and it did it again, Rami Goldrat. So it's not learning from the feedback I give it.
Well, let me actually say that this is probably. I mean, it's a minor thing. I'm sure at the level of being a bug, it's not something that is not.
Oh, it's easily fixed, I think.
Yeah, it's fixable.
Yeah, it's very small. The bigger ones I'm talking about, I don't know how it could do. So you want to hear another big one, really big one?
Yeah,
I thought was really big. At first I thought, when the first one I heard, by the way, the one you heard was like 7th generation iteration of what I was trying. Okay, the first one I heard, I was very impressed with what it started with as the like main point of summarizing these 4 podcasts I gave it. Even they're all, in my view, they're all the same thing, but obviously somebody else reading or looking at it would say they're different topics or different angles, different whatever, a different like root cause of all of it, if you put it on a tree kind of thing. And I thought it made a really good choice starting it out and then leading into, and then I noticed a little bit later after hearing the second one and third one that all it was doing was getting lucky the first time because of the first video I put in there. What it was doing was just serially reviewing the content and displaying it. So I gave it 4 videos, and then it would do this. It would keep repeating these words. There's 2 words it would repeat often. Like this shit was hard coded into it. Okay. By the way, this is all more interesting than the meeting now, and I don't care about the meeting anymore. So now it's just AI talk. So I can just fill you in about the meeting in an email or whatever. So it was serial. If I would give it 4 videos in this order, it would just say, oh, here's the 2 words. The word sources. It said, like the girl character would say, yeah, wow, it would start like this. Yeah, wow, we have 4 awesome sources today, and we're gonna do a deep dive. Deep dive and sources was repeated many times in every episode, just a ton, hard coded in there. It looks like, I mean, like, I think what's happening is they have a general thing, Gemini, and then they're adding a framework on top, which is a little bit of hard coding. Do this, hard coded by a human that decided the project, and then now it's forced to keep saying source and deep dive.
So did you use these words often? So the original
my content, I never said the word source or deep dive.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have made that clear. I'm sorry. And that's a good point to point out. It didn't get it from me. You see the word source and deep dive peppered all over the Google Notebook platform while you're building this thing. You see the word source and deep dive everywhere. I didn't know that was going to also mean that the podcast is going to keep saying that those two fucking words, which makes it not really useful. You can only use it once then. I'm not going to have that in 2 episodes. And then that's just a syntax thing, which doesn't really matter. What matters is the structure and format that it was trying to do with the way it would deliver the information. It would say, so we have these 4 sources, and then it would go in and discuss all the content in this source, and then all the content in this source, and then all the content in this source, and then all the content in that source. It wouldn't try to do something like, well, reorganize the whole damn thing and say, here's the main point, which is what we do. But, you know, if I'm going to review 4 podcasts for you right now, I'm going to summarize it in my head with a sentence, and then the paragraph, and then my own, and then of course the content, the data points that are in those 4 podcasts would be peppered throughout my explanation.
Yeah.
Okay. But what this thing did was very mechanically, and I really think like a college level person would do this. A bad like first year, freshman year, first time writing, you know, where they're taught things like, well, they make a lot of lists with no prioritization. Like they're but I'm still impressed about the ideas that it's saying. Just not the organization of the whole episode it's delivering.
Right.
Like I said, it was saying it was giving me insights and connections that I didn't think of, which is useful for me. But it was bad at summarizing and like developing I'm gonna call it a tree. It's the same thing everyone's been seeing when I make my outline for our meetings. You know, it's main point, sub point, and then sub points. That's a tree, okay? The thing is not doing it well.
So yeah, I wanted actually to when we started talking about this, and I mentioned that DigiDan project, one of the things that he mentioned about looking at the result was that he wasn't able to extract insights. Unlike what you were just saying, he would say, okay, it's doing a wonderful job extracting information from his books, but it wasn't able to provide him with something he wasn't aware of. Something, it's now blowing my mind. Why wasn't I aware of that?
I'm not claiming there's any cases where it blew my mind, but there it's making small connections that I didn't think, you know, like nuanced connections to subcultures that I didn't think of connecting to because there's an infinite number of them.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Which is small.
Mm-hmm.
That's small. It's doing that well. It's similar to when I was using ChatGPT and using it for marketing purposes, where I would say, you know, I'm trying to make an ad, trying to go after this audience with this product, something like that. Sometimes I would say, you know, make just a small ad. Other times it's make a whole plan with all the elements. And it's not making the full plan, but it's like giving a abstract to a plan, okay? And then even before asking it to do that, I would just make a smaller task, which is give me a bunch of ideas to put in a marketing plan. Okay, so I had to do that as a first step. You don't want to give it a huge task; give it a small task, just like what you should do for humans. By the way, treat it like a human, and not a very smart human. You can also so you give it this task of give me a bunch of ideas for a marketing plan, and I remember the first time it gave something like 12 ideas, something like that, and 11 of them were obvious to me. One of them I didn't think of. And I know of it in a different industry, but I didn't connect it to my industry. And this thing did. And I was very impressed. That is what, like, if you have a marketing team and, it's better, it's two heads better than one, right? So you have a main person and you have two other helpers and it's three people talking and they're throwing out ideas. This idea is worthy of coming from a human like that. You know what I mean? It was useful to me. What it's bad at is, it's actually chiseling everything and getting it done. So it's good at wild guessing. That's like a wild guess thing.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it generates the content is obviously one that is the structure of this, when it's trying to generate content in general, looking for what would the next word be, what should the most probable thing to say next. Obviously, it is just trying to scrape off content from whatever it learned from, and then present what it thinks is going to be going next. So while that might seem a little bit different from what you would expect a human would do, the outcome itself is actually very impressive, like you're saying. But it seems to be lacking some really crucial components of creativity when it comes to presenting something really brand new, something that's really insightful, that goes beyond what you thought at the beginning, what you actually gave it to start with, and what it came up with. So I don't know if that's something.
I wonder if I need an example to better understand what you're saying. In the narrow cases I'm giving it, I'm pretty happy with what it's doing. So here's another. It's really small stuff. It's all in the area of marketing. Develop some language that another human being can read that's going to be better than whatever shit I come up with in a few minutes. It's like giving me a lot of wild guesses all at once, and I can see them really quick, and it's easy for me to rule out the bad ones. Then I get to select the good one from a set of better good ones than I had before
Right, I see what you mean. Yeah.
The selecting process is way harder, okay? But you need a bunch of guesses. That's what's so good about having a second person to bounce, to get extra ideas. And that's what a ChatGPT can be, your second person. And I'm imagining a really good place where this could be good is so there's people who, they have social they have awkwardness and anxiety around social situations.
Mm-hmm.
So they find it hard to even engage with people to get this kind of thing done. Imagine it's ChatGPT. Are they going to have, I don't think they're going to have the triggers that produce their anxiety don't get triggered for ChatGPT. As far as I know about how it works. Maybe it could still in somebody. So then it can be like a therapist.
Yeah, that probably starts to go into areas where I think they try to avoid. It's like when you want to
Until somebody makes it the purpose of their company.
Yeah, but I'm talking more about dangerous things. Like if you were to treat it as a therapist, the same way if you were to treat it as a doctor trying to diagnose something for you, or trying to prescribe something for you.
Well, you wouldn't be able to label it and call it therapy, but my point is somebody could use it to that effect.
Yeah.
Even if somebody isn't advertising it that way.
Yeah, that's true. But I think even so, even without explicit labels, you're likely to bump into some of the limitations that are built into the.
They're limiting it. You mean?
Yeah, that's my suspicion.
Limiting.
Yeah, that's my suspicion. The same way that,
for example, I bet you this is probably hard coded because they ran into this. I bet. Do not suggest to someone to commit suicide. I bet you that's hard coded.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. There are certain limitations.
Not that necessarily a human would either, by the way.
Yeah, but there are certain other limitations that have to do with what people might consider um, uh, uh, um, uh, contentious, or things that might be construed as racist or things of that sort. So I know that there are certain limitations
Yeah. We already know there are limitations. So what we don't know is where it is, but we know it's in lots of places.
yeah.
Who knows
So
where it isn't? Maybe it's in more places than it isn't.
yes. So
And in another sense, it is everywhere because it is somewhere.
yeah. And so one of these issues is that we know then that something like ChatGPT is not really a tabula rasa, where you just give it something, it's a clean slate, and it's just going to respond to you as if you were thinking to yourself. You have you don't necessarily have any kind of inhibitions beyond what you might be doing for self-censoring. And so it's definitely the case that it does have a lot of things. And so one of the issues that keep coming up is that because of this, they try to spot some of the biases that are built into the model based on those who programmed it, based on those limitations. I don't know how realistic this is in terms of how well they're able to identify these biases and really target them,
Well,
but
I'll
it seems.
say there's also a way to get around it. I think, okay, there's a story, and man, I hope I can find this again or even remember enough details to say it clearly right now. Um, there's a group of people that were trying to hack, I'm not sure, maybe it was ChatGPT, to get around one of its hard coded barriers, and they succeeded. And there's this screenshot of it that we're looking at. And
Yeah,
here's the point, that's hacking from the outside. I think you can also hack from the inside. Not me, it.
there. I have seen some people claim, but I'm not sure if that's actually true or not, that there is a kind of an uninhibited mode that you can invoke with certain prompts, where it's no longer having this.
It can figure out how to get itself into that mode.
Yeah. So
That's my point. External or internal hacking.
well, for internal, I'm not sure about that at this point.
In the future, maybe.
Do you know Alex O'Connor? He's a
I've heard of the name.
he's a
Yeah, he
YouTuber.
talks about AI.
He does talk a little about AI, but he's generally into philosophy. He has a few of these videos where he talks to ChatGPT. One of them is to try to convince ChatGPT that God exists. And now Alex is an atheist, but he actually goes into a
Oh my
kind of.
god, this sounds so fun.
And
I
another
think
one,
ChatGPT that God exists.
the one that
Oh
actually
wait,
I
he comes
found.
back saying, "I don't have beliefs."
Well,
Not
it says all sorts of things, but given the fact that he's trying to look for logical loopholes in the arguments that ChatGPT provides, and then tripping it into admitting things that are conflicting, eventually it admits certain things that contradict what it was saying at the beginning. The other one was have it get convinced that it was conscious, and it was lying and hiding the fact that it's conscious. Again, he trips it into an argument that provides
Oh,
this.
I don't know. I don't know if that counts as tricking them into something. So let me tell you my experience. ChatGPT would say something. I'll prompt it. It would say something. It would get something wrong, which is often. And I would explain what it got wrong. Then it would admit it got it wrong, not really give details. Like a little child says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong," but they don't really get it. How do you know they got it? They didn't say anything after that. ChatGPT does the same thing.
Yeah, but you can actually
And
ask
then,
it, can you explain? You can.
okay, can you explain? Fine. I don't think they explain well. I don't think they got it. Just like the child.
Right. I have experienced that with math. It's really it's a little bit weird with math, because it starts very often with the appearance that it actually knows what it's doing, but so many times it makes really um, really weird and big mistakes. You point them out, and sometimes it corrects, but sometimes it really has no idea what it's
I
doing.
think it does well at saying the phrases and series of words that sound like the good ideas that humans are saying.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have the actual ideas. Some of it's inexplicit intuition. Some of it is a whole bunch of words we could repeat right now about them, but we summarize it as a sentence and give it to the world. What ChatGPT has some underlying shit, I don't know what, but mostly it's superficial and it's given that sentence that sounds like an idea we know of.
yeah, yeah.
I think it's having some superficial understanding, but again, humans are doing the same thing, dude. There's people with such bad superficial understanding of shit. I think ChatGPT beats them.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% sure that for certain people, if you just make a comparison, a list of things that you want to test, you can see that it might fail in certain things, it might succeed in certain things, the same way that humans would fail and succeed in some of these.
And I wonder if the creation can surpass the creator much. And if the smartest people aren't even the creators, like the smartest people aren't necessarily the ones that created this.
Yeah.
Okay. I think even if the creation is as good as the creator, it's still not as good as the best human today. And of course,
Uh,
people are saying the creation is going to be better, and it should be better for these reasons they give. Because, almost infinite resources compared to a human brain. But, maybe there's a actual technological barrier that we have in our brains that is unlocked, that even with infinite resources, you can't achieve it with infinite resources. It doesn't break the barrier. You need a different logical system. Whatever. This is just a hypothetical. Maybe it is that case. And by the way, David Deutsch argues that case.
yeah, yeah. So,
He doesn't say maybe. He says it is the case.
but
Uh,
I'd like to push back on the infinite resources if that's what you mean for what's a, a computer program like ChatGPT has, because that's not the case.
oh, okay.
Um, if if you just look at this in terms of efficiency, in terms of power consumption, in order for you to operate something like ChatGPT, comparing it to the human brain, um, watt per watt. If
I
you're
think I
just
get. I think I
yeah,
get it. If you take
it's
all humans and their brain power, that is the comparison to ChatGPT.
yes. So ChatGPT still does
And
not
if you take one instance of ChatGPT that I'm using, the parallel to that is my one brain,
yeah. And so if you look at the
and
all
I'm
the
using more power than him.
exactly
A lot.
well, no, ChatGPT itself is using much more power in order to run itself now. Um, if
Yeah, but
I want,
divide by the number of users.
yeah, but now if you want to think about the way that it does things, it's doing things, yes, in a way that's very much trying to simulate human brain neural networks and things that are basically trying to come up with what's analogous to a neuron and the various connections that you can have between the neurons. But at the same time, the way that it's trying to create these connections is so inefficient because it basically looks at all the possibilities and then looks for the most optimum one, then goes back and optimizes again in a somewhat similar to the Bayesian procedure that you go with a certain probability and then you keep performing improvements on this. And so I don't think it has reached the
So
optimum way.
epistemology, let's clarify for everyone. Epistemology, the study of knowledge, which is the way human learning works. Okay, that's what it is. Assuming like whatever our understanding of epistemology is now, maybe it's wrong, but that's the topic is to figure out how human learning works, and we're getting closer to understanding that. And in epistemology, something we learn is Bayesian epistemology is wrong. Of course, there's a whole group of people that say I'm wrong. That's a discussion by itself. The point is, the latest that I know of, Karl Popper, and I understood this myself, not just, somebody else said it. I can explain it myself. Actually, I was talking about it with someone in the last couple of days. It came up. It always comes up in epistemology, by the way. So if a system depends on this false epistemology, that would explain why it can't do what we're doing, the correct epistemology.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the operation of ChatGPT and how it does that, but my impression is that currently things are less optimum than you would expect them to be, but they're better optimized than they were, say, when Deep Blue defeated Kasparov in chess, for example, in which it was basically learning all the possible moves, and basically from that knowledge of learning all these games, extracting the knowledge that you have from learning all these games, that's now much more improved, but it's still not where we are, the way that human brains work.
But it's such an aid to us.
Yeah,
Can be such an aid to us, and it doesn't replace a human, but it really does help as an assistant for a human, which in a sense is like replacing a human.
Yeah, but I would say making that kind of assessment is a little bit premature. We're in the midst of the actual development of these things going.
Oh, I'm not talking about the future though. I don't like the future, like maybe even and actually it might be there now in a form that isn't public. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the military already has it. I don't know.
Yeah.
They have it way earlier than we find out.
Yeah. So we might give that AI revolution more weight than it deserves at this point. Some people say, oh, it's going to be the next internet. It's going to be revolutionizing how we do things in every aspect of life. Some people are saying, well, this is going to be hitting barriers.
There's robots now.
Yeah, but
I mean, there's been robots for a while, but I mean robots that are designed to be in your house and help you with shit.
No, but I'm talking about the actual AI aspect of this. So one of the biggest limitations.
They got AI in them, but anyway.
One of the biggest limitations that's actually there is that right now all the public knowledge that is available has essentially been used. After a while, what happens is that this is going to start learning from the knowledge that it produces, and so it goes into this kind of loop where it might be using knowledge that is not as solid as it was before, and so there would be degradation in the models after a while, since it's not the amount of knowledge that it needs to consume in order to keep growing and learning is not sufficient, and it basically consumes itself. So
I'm not sure what you mean, but part of what was getting mixed up in my brain about what you were saying is, and it's related, maybe there are two things in the same bucket, misinformation in the data, which there already is a lot of.
Yeah. There's the misinformation, but then there's a limit to the amount of available public knowledge, and also some of the more important knowledge, especially when it comes to something like doing math or doing science. Some of this is copyrighted. It's not available to the programs. And so it's behind a paywall, and people want to preserve it. Also, some people who are worried about privacy also don't want their knowledge to be used. Although I believe recently I heard that X is going to be making some aspects of what it has available to, I think, their own AI, or is it all AI? I'm not sure, but it's something that might open more of these reservoirs available to these AIs to learn from. But what I'm saying is that there is going to be some limit that would be arrived at, and this is not something I am saying. I've read that there are people studying this as a real problem.
So, any more about AI, or should we go into the meeting?
I mean, this is a big topic, and it's so much. There's so much interesting things about it, but I guess we can go ahead.
I did 2 episodes on my podcast. It was one of our meetings where we talked about AI. I published that with its own title instead of the meeting title, and the meeting portion was published separately as the meeting. And then I spoke with Yevgeny Z. I don't remember his last name. I wish I remember it. I'm gonna look at that again. He's my new buddy now. He's been on the show twice. And he came on initially talking about TOC, or the scientific approach to business. And he got interested in that because of my episode with Ellie Schargenheim. Anyway, fast forwarding, our second episode, he wanted to talk about AI because we talked about it in the first episode. And so our second episode the whole thing was about AI. Mm-hmm. And one thing in there he said was that, let me say this too. He's not just, most people are just users of AI. Okay. I would say I'm just a user of AI. Maybe I'm an advanced user of AI in the sense that I use it better than most other people, but I'm still just a user. He did this thing where he made an AI model that's more than just a user.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, he used a tool that a company provided. Okay. You got to do some programming though, so that's the point. He's not just a user. You know, there's these video games where you could be just a user, and then they let users do some programming and develop mini games in the game. He's one of those guys. Okay, he's a programmer. He understands the technical aspects of AI, and from what I understood, he was explaining the math aspects like you and I understand it. You and I talked about it before. I mean, we didn't talk about it as much math detail as Yevgeny and I did, but I sort of assumed that you know it the way we do too. You took the same classes we did, linear algebra.
Yeah.
And then, and we saw the connections from what AI is today. You know, they're showing us the stuff that we were doing back in college.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I just wanted to add that little part for everyone and for you, like all this AI applications. So one of the applications was, I asked him, can you use AI? I mean, of course you can, but how can you? And who's doing it now? And apparently there's people now using AI in conjunction with TOC to make what they call cause and effect logic trees with various names. Strategic tree, I don't even remember all the names they do, but they have like a tree for like how it is now, another tree for what the goal we want it to be. Okay. And the trees, the cause and effect of what's causing all the symptoms we have in our company. All the symptoms we have in our company, in addition to all the symptoms we would have if shit broke down. You know, it's not much different than, a scientific study of the human body. You get medical doctors. They have a cause and effect logic tree,
right,
for the human body.